Yo. What's up, GameLeapers? Coach Jizz back at it, and whether you want to admit it or not, warding is a skill every single one of us needs to master. So in just the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to walk you through these science behind warding, and then I'm going to show you the must-know ward locations and tricks for each role. Now the thing is, you are not going to become a challenger player without this knowledge. It is a fact. Just like it's a fact that if you keep asking for timestamps, aka shortcuts, you're going to miss out on crucial information and stay hard stuck. Now speaking of crucial information, if you want to unhard stuck yourself this season and want guaranteed improvement, sign up to the GameLeap website just like thousands of your fellow summoners. The most up-to-date champion courses, guides, and videos are just one click away, guys. Links as always in the description and comment section. Alright, let's get into it, and I'm going to start off by asking you why warding is important. Like, we all know a trinket or a control ward grants vision of the area in which it is placed, but what does this actually do? Well, this can spot out enemy threats and create a threat of our own. So in bot lane, for example, the main threat in that lane is the enemy support. Let's say it's a Thresh. By warding the brushes Thresh can create pressure in, all of a sudden, we are aware of this threat, and we're not going to get spam pinged by our team for getting Thresh hooked. Like, I'm sure it's happened to all of us where we get hooked from a brush or over a wall because we didn't see it coming. Well, this is where warding comes into play. It's going to save your beer can and your teammates' mental, which is perhaps the most important thing these days. So that's the first reason. It's going to alert you of danger and you're going to die less as a result. Well, we can also flip that around, and by warding effectively, we can be the ones creating a threat. For example, same situation, let's say you're the one playing Thresh and an enemy wards the brush you're in. Momentarily, your threat has been thwarted, but can't you renew it? Isn't there something you can do to reactivate your threat? There is. You can put a control ward in that brush or use a red sweeper to clear that enemy ward. So the enemy AD carry during this sequence is saying, Thresh is in that brush, I'm gonna ward it. Haha, I found you. Oh, never mind, he just cleared my ward. Now I have to be super careful again. And that player might have to give up CS just to survive. It's a game of pressure, guys, that's what it is. The better you are at nullifying and creating threats, the more pressure you create and the less deaths or more kills you're going to have. So that's all good, right? Knowing why to ward and why it's important, but it's essential to know when to ward and where, of course. Now I see so many low elo players using their walls at completely the wrong time and in the wrong place. Maybe they finally listened to Doublelift and joined pro guides, I'm not sure. So I'm going to go over 5 warding and vision keys that will instantly make you a better player. Number 1. Do not ward for your jungler at level 1. I see this all the time, and you might even be someone who does it. You know, your jungler asks you to ward their red buff or their blue buff or the river in case they get invaded. Screw your jungler. Straight up. They don't exist. Like, do you think even if you ward it, they're going to see someone walking over it? Not only do minimaps not exist until maybe Diamond, but it is far more important to save that trinket for your lane. Whether you're a top laner, a mid laner, or a bot laner, it doesn't matter. Using that ward for yourself, instead of some random gold jungler who will feed anyway, is one step you can take to winning more games. And we know why, right? Because warding and vision creates pressure, and not having as many wards as your opponent puts you at a disadvantage. Now some of you might be thinking that's not being a team player. Bro, your jungler asking you to place a meaningless ward, that's not being a team player. I've said it in other videos, but selfish league, playing for yourself in your lane, is a winning mindset. So next time Trick2G-Fan99 on Udyr asks you to ward his jungler at level 1, say no. I obey Coach Jizz, and he told me not to. Seriously though, don't do it. Alright, number 2, the second key to warding and vision control, the enemy jungler. Now, how many of you ward a river brush or the river when the enemy jungler is on the other side of the map? Because I don't call that worth, I call that being bereft of pressure. I want that on a GameLeap t-shirt someday, actually. But guys, seriously, this is one of the most common mistakes in low elo. Let's say you're playing Darius top and the enemy jungler all of a sudden ganks your bot lane. Do not waste your ward, because you know where they are. Like, you actually have vision of them on your map, so there's no threat of a gank. You can save your trinket or control ward for one of the lane brushes, or you can just save it when the enemy jungler most likely comes topside after they reset. But coach, what about if the enemy jungler doesn't show on the map? How do we know when to ward? Well, that's a great question, GameLeaper. I always tell my students if the enemy jungler ganks you without red buff, they're trolling. So if the enemy jungler starts at their blue buff, if you're in the lane closest to that start, you don't have to worry about getting ganked for a few minutes, so you can save your ward for your lane. Now, if they do start red buff, your first question should be what? What's their favorite color? No, it should be, can they level 2 gank me? If the answer to that question is yes, for example, the enemy jungler might be a Xin Zhao, a Jarvan, a Lee Sin, you can either play safe until you know for sure they've left, or to be 100% safe, you can ward the obvious route they would take to your lane. So try brush for top and bot lane, or on Raptors for mid lane. And I know that lots of junglers in lower levels of play, you might even be one, especially love to pull out a cheeky level 2 gank that most of the time works because laners don't have a sound grasp of warding and vision. So if the enemy jungler is on your your side of the map and there is a possibility they could gank you in the near future, it's ward time. Now the next key to warding like a challenger is to not ward when there are minions to be had. Do not give up vital golden experience to go and ward 10 seconds away. Now in the low elo VOD reviews I've done on this amazing channel, and make sure you subscribe and turn on all notifications, players are willing to give up multiple minions to go ward. The reason this is bad is because you are imposing a cost on yourself for warding. It's like you're saying, alright, I'm going to go ward, but I'm going to miss CS. Yeah, whatever, I'll do it anyway. You can make it so that conversation in your head goes like, alright, I'm going to ward now because I'm not losing any CS. So if you're already in lane or somewhere on the map, the two best times to go ward are when you have shoved a wave or just before the waves collide. Both of these scenarios mean you're not throwing gold and experience out the window, so in your games never go to ward somewhere if you're going to miss out on bank and levels. These two facets of the game are everything. Alright, the fourth key to great warding is to ward unseen. As Karzik says, the unseen threat is the deadliest. Well, this applies to warding as well, right? Because we've established vision control is actually a threat. And one tactic you can use in your games that will instantly improve your win rate is to ward before showing in lane, hence warding unseen. Now, if you were to run to lane and then go to ward, what's the problem with this? Well, it probably looks obvious you're going to ward somewhere, but the scoreboard has been updated, and if you have a control ward in your inventory, the enemy can see this. A few seconds later, you reappear in lane, and if they embrace their inner Sherlock Holmes, they will be able to tell exactly where you have placed that control ward, just from pressing tab. Then they ping that area to their jungler, and you waste a ward. How 5-head is that? So before you get to lane, and you are not going to miss golden experience for it, put your unseen control ward down. Now guys, we are one key warding tip away from showing you the red hot ward spots that are going to help you climb ASAP. Now the last detail to think about when warding is the actual state of the lane. And there are two things to consider here: the position of the minion waves and the behavior of these waves. As in, is the wave pushing into you? Is it pushing into them? Is it frozen? Is it going to bounce back to a neutral position? Because warding in certain locations, even though you may have been told these spots are really OP, are useless if the lane is nowhere near it. For example, if you're an AD carry on red side and your lane is pushing towards the enemy tower, why would you want to ward your tri-brush here? It would be a lot better to ward the river brush, river, or the enemy tri-brush instead, right? Or you might be a mid laner and the opponent has frozen the wave in a dangerous position. You would want to ward close to that position so you're immediately aware of the enemy jungler if they choose to gank you. You don't want to be warding outside your red buff, for example. So this key is slightly nuanced, but the underlying lesson here is to place wards near the position of the lane, not in Timbuktu. Now you guys have been waiting for it. I'm going to show you ward spots for each role that will make or break your success in Season 11. But before we get into them, one last friendly reminder to check out the GameLeap website for all your League of Legends needs. If you want challenger level content designed to help you learn and become one of us, then it's simple. Sign up. Links down below. Alright, let's start with mid lane wards. And these are useful for everyone, by the way, because later in a game when your AD carry and support go mid to feed, they need to know these too. So listen up. So as you can see, I have highlighted the best warding spots for mid lane. So feel free to ward in any of these positions given the right conditions that we just went over, and I want to point out a couple of tricks that only high elo players know about, so watch this. You see, most people when they ward raptors just think, oh, as long as I can see raptors, that's all that matters. No. If you are able to, you want to be warding on this line or beyond it. So you see these three flowers on the red buff and the small indent in the raptor's wall? This is the line of all lines. In fact, let's call it the 3-flower line. And what this does is it gives you vision of the enemy jungler when they path from raptors to red or red to raptors. You see, if I just ward here like 99% of players, I can't see the enemy jungler if they choose not to do raptors. They can hug the wall and get in this brush without me seeing them. But if I place my ward on the 3-flower line, I can see them. Also, smart junglers, if they know you have warded their raptors, will do raptors in the brush, meaning the only way you know they are doing them is by actually looking at the camp itself, and most of the time you won't have time to because yeah, you're focusing on your 1v1. So that's a cool little trick to know. Now, one more challenger trick I want to share with you is to control ward the side lane brushes, not the pixel brushes. Your control wards cost 75 gold, right? That's almost as much as a standard minion wave. You know, you had to work hard for it, so you don't want to give it away for free. Well, by placing it in a pixel brush, not only is it further away from your lane, it's impossible to stop the enemy jungler or support from taking it. It's like you wasted 75 gold. But if that control ward is in a side lane brush, it actually becomes risky for an enemy champion to take it because you can defend it much easier and there's a cost to taking it. If they want that control ward, they're going to have to sacrifice some HP for it, or maybe they even die for it. So in pixel brushes, use your trinkets and control wards in the nearby lane brushes. Alright, let's go to the bot lane, and as you can see, I have marked spots where you want to ward given the right circumstance. Now most people, when they go to ward this tri-brush, just ward the tri-brush. Well, from now on, I want you guys to trinket over this wall towards the enemy Krugs brush. This is going to spot the enemy jungler rotating from Krugs to bot lane, and even the enemy support and AD carry doing the same. Now another personal favorite is warding the enemy Gromp or Blast Cone area, and there's this secret spot too. Now how OP is that? So to pull this bad boy off, you have to wedge yourself against the wall just below this tree, and hover your cursor towards the bottom of this wall or tree, and as soon as your cursor turns yellow, you ward, and it ends up in this tri-brush. Now you don't want to take ages doing this in a proper game, of course, so make sure you practice it first so you can do it in a couple of seconds when it matters. You should also practice this one so you're warding this river brush from lane, and all you're doing is hugging close to this wall and putting your cursor just to the left of this rock in the wall. Now another tip for warding bot lane is to try to keep a trinket in the furthest lane brush at all times so you always have the threat of a TP. Remember, that's what warding is, guys, creating threats. Now let's head to the top lane, and again highlighted are the prime warding spots, and the one tricky spot you need to perfect is this one right here. So it's exactly the same as the one for bot lane, you're just hugging the wall, but for consistency always stand on top of these two cactus legs and place your cursor on the right of this shadowy rock in the wall. Again, it's important to be able to do this quickly, so get your heads in a practice tool and fire away. So last on the list, guys, we're going to take a look at some must-know jungle ward locations, and these are relevant to anyone. For example, when you're preparing to fight at barons and dragons, all of you have to know these. Now there are two in particular you guys need to master. So the first is warding the brush outside red buff from inside the baron and dragon pits. So what you're going to do for dragon is get as close as you can to the point where this log and rock meet. It will look as if the point of the rock is hitting your champion's head. Then it's about moving your cursor towards the edge of the brush and pressing your ward hotkey just before your cursor turns green. Now for baron, you're going to want to press your knees into the wall where this faint pink line is. Then the same idea, hover your cursor to the edge of the brush, and when your cursor is a pixel away from turning green, in it goes. I've said that before. Now the second ward spot is to ward the tri-brush from both pits, and will stay with the baz, so as long as you get close to the top side of the pit, this will work. Right, so there is a faint line in the rock that leads into this tree to the left. At the point where it meets this tree, that's where you hover your cursor and ward, and it will work wherever you are standing. And if we go back to dragon, you can also hug anywhere along the bottom side of the pit wall and aim your cursor on the bottom left of this slab in the ground as soon as it meets the grass. Be careful though, because if you do get too much concrete, the ward will end up on the other side of this tree and you have to cop a question mark. So take these warding tips into your games, guys, and make use of the spots at the right times, and you will climb as a result, I guarantee it. Thanks so much for watching. Let us know you enjoyed the video by leaving a like down below. This has been Coach Cheese, and until tomorrow's upload.